Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Drawing Down the Dragon. I'm Snappy, and thank you for joining me for our morning adoration to the Muses. And we cry out in loving adoration to the Great Mother, the Twins, and the Muses, the One, Duality, and Generation. And we ask the Muses to sing in us the songs of inspiration, to guide us in our daily wanderings, and to teach us to listen and perceive with reasoned clarity. Thank you all for joining me on such a lovely, lovely morning. Truly appreciated. Much love to you, Howard, Nethrion, much love, Virgie, much love, Metal Chaos, much love. Such a pleasure to be here with you guys on such a lovely day. And we find ourselves under the moon in Leo, outgoing, exuberant, jubilant, childlike, playful Leo. Now is a time for fun and frivolity, to enjoy life, to be in your body, to be in yourself, to explore pleasures and senses, and to be in that truly prideful, playful energy. We can set our sights on the future. We have the strength to endure. We have the power to persist and the will to overcome, and that true, loving, playful energy. Allow it to envelop you and to call you into your best self. Powerful, powerful magic here. All right, beautiful. With that, we're going to begin with our first prayer for the morning. And as always, we begin with the prayer to Selene for any spell, which comes to us from the PGM, the Greek Magical Papyri, the book 4. So let's give this a wonderful read. Come to me, O beloved mistress, three-faced Selene. Kindly hear my sacred chants, nice ornament, young, bringing light to mortals. O child of morn who ride upon fierce bulls, O queen who drive your car on equal course with Helios, who with the triple forms of triple graces dance and revel with the stars. Your justice and the Moira's threads, Clotho and Lachesis and Atropos, three-headed, your Persephone, Megara, Alecto, many-formed, who arm your hands with dreaded murky lamps, who shake your locks of fearful serpents on your brow, who sound the roar of bulls out from your mouths, whose womb is decked out with the scales of creeping things, with poisonous rows of serpents down the back, bound down your backs with horrifying chains, night crier, bull-faced, loving solitude, bull-headed, you have eyes of bulls, the voice of dogs, you hide your forms in shanks of lions. Your ankle is wolf-shaped, fierce dogs are dear to you, wherefore they call you Hecate, many named Mene, cleaving air just like dart shooter Artemis, Persephone, shooter of deer, Night shining, triple sounding, triple headed, triple voiced, Selene. Triple pointed, triple faced, triple necked, and goddess of the triple ways, who hold untiring flaming fire in triple baskets. And you who oft frequent the triple way and rule the triple decades. Unto me, whom calling you, be gracious, and with kindness give heed. You who protect the spacious world at night, before whom daimons quake in fear, and gods immortal tremble. Goddess who exalt men, you of many names, who bear fair offspring, bull-eyed, horned mother of gods and men, and nature, mother of all things, for you frequent Olympus and the broad and boundless chasm you traverse. Beginning and end are you, and you alone rule all. For all things are from you, and in you do all things, Eternal One, come to their end. As everlasting band around your temples, you wear great Cronus's chains, unbreakable and unremovable, and you hold in your hands a golden scepter. Letters round your scepter Kronos wrote himself and gave to you to wear, that all things stay steadfast. Subduer and subdued, mankind subduer and force subduer. Chaos too you rule. Ararakarara effiskere. Hail goddess and attend your epithets. I burn for you this spice, O child of Zeus, dart shooter, heavenly one, goddess of harbors, who roam the mountains, goddess of crossroads, O nether and nocturnal and infernal, goddess of dark, quiet and frightful one. O you who have your meal amid the graves, night, darkness, broad chaos, necessity, hard to escape are you, your Moira and Erinyes, torment, justice, and destroyer, and you keep Cerberus in chains. With scales of serpents are you dark, O you with hair of serpents, serpent girded, who drink blood, who bring death and destruction, and who feast on hearts, flesh eater, who devour those dead untimely, and you who make grief resound and spread madness. Come to my sacrifices, and now for me do you fulfill this matter. Hail Artemis, hail Hecate, hail Selene. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I hope that resonated with you. It always resonates with me. What a powerful prayer. Beautiful. And up next, we're going to dive into our second prayer for the morning. And this is, of course, is Proclus's hymn to Helios. Hearken, king of Noeric fire, Titan holding the golden bridle. Hearken, dispenser of light, you, O Lord, who hold yourself the key to the life-supporting source, and channel off from above a rich stream of harmony into the material worlds. Hearken, for you, being above the middlemost seat of Aether, and in possession of the very brilliant disk, the heart of the cosmos, have filled everything with your intellect awakening providence. The planets, girded with your ever-blooming torches, through unceasing and untiring dances, always send life-producing drops down for earthlings. Under the influence of your chariots' returning courses, everything that is born has sprouted up, according to the ordinance of the seasons. The din of the elements, clashing with each other, stopped once you appeared from your unspeakable begetter. For you, the unshakable choir of the Moirai has yielded. Back again they wind the thread of compelling destiny when you wish it. For all around you dominate, all around you rule by force. From your chain, the king of the song that obeys the divine Phoebus sprung forth, singing inspired songs to the accompaniment of the kithara. He calms the great wave of deep, roaring becoming. From your evil averting band that imparts pleasant gifts, Paean sprouted, and he imposed his health by filling the wide cosmos with harmony, wholly devoid of harm. People honor you in hymns as the famous father of Dionysus, and again some praise you in songs as Eos, Attis, in the extreme depths of matter, whereas others praise you as pretty Adonis. The thread of your swift whip holds fears for the wild-tempered daimons, noxious to men, who prepare evil for our miserable souls, in order that forever, in the gulf of heavy resounding fire, they suffer once they have fallen under the yoke of the body, with the result that they forget the bright, shining court of the lofty Father. But you, the best of gods, crowned with fire, blessed daimon, image of the all-creating God, uplifter of souls, hearken and always purify me of every fault. Receive my tearful supplication. Pull me out of baneful defilement and keep me far from the punishing deities while mollifying the swift eye of justice that sees all. May you always, through your evil averting, help give holy light rich with blessings to my soul. Once you have scattered the man-destroying poisonous mist, and to my body fitness and gift-bestowing health, bring me to glory, that in accord with the traditions of my forefathers, I may cultivate the gifts of the Muses with pretty locks. Give me, if you wish so, Lord, unshakable bliss as a reward for lovely piety. You perfect all things easily, for you have the power and infinite might. And if some ill comes my way through the threads moved by the stars from the spindles of destiny that revolve in the helices, ward it off yourself with your mighty radiance. Hail Helios, hail Zeus, hail Apollo, hail Ammon. Beautiful. What a powerful prayer. Love it. And we continue with our next prayer. Our third prayer for the morning is to the Muses, and this comes to us from the Orphic hymns. Daughters of Memnosine, daughters of thundering Zeus, Pyrian Muses, renowned and illustrious, many-shaped and beloved of the mortals you visit, you give birth to unblemished virtue in every discipline. You nourish the soul, you set thought aright. As you become leaders, as you become mistresses of the mind's power, sacred and mystic rites you taught to mortals. Clio, Euterpe, Talia, Melpomene, Terpsichore, Orato, Polymnia, Urania, Mother Calliope, mighty goddess Hagni, do come to the initiates, O goddesses, in your manifold holiness. Do bring glory and emulation that is lovely and sung by many. Hail the Muses, hail Memnosine. And we have one final prayer for our morning here, and this is Tibulus's prayer to the Lares, the ancestral spirits of home. Lares, gods of my fathers, preserve me. While young and still nursing, you guided me when I played at your feet. Let none profane your antique images, rough-hewn wooden statues set upon altars of upturned sod, then dwelled among our grandfathers. In those days, humble reverence provided you with sweet honey alone. You stayed in meager shrines made of twigs. In tattered robes, the gods were pleased with offerings of grapes and wreaths of wheat set upon carved heads. Granted his wish, a man would bring you honey cakes and set his virgin daughters to attend your little shrines. Lares, turn away from us those who scheme against us with their bronze weapons. Hail the Lares, Harry, hail the spirits of place. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Amazing. And with that, guys, we're now going to dive into our readings for the day. And last we left off, we were diving deep into the incredible Book of Imaginary Beings by Jorge Borges, or by Jorge Luis Borges, sorry. One of my favorite writers, an incredible Argentine writer who just has such amazing mystical vision. And we've been reading this book over the last several weeks. And this is sort of a bestiary of imaginary beings from across cultures, history, and mythology. And where we left off last was the unicorn of China. So let's dive in and see what Borges has to tell us about the unicorn. The Chinese unicorn, the qilin, is one of the 4 animals of good omen. The others are the dragon, the phoenix, and the tortoise. The unicorn is foremost of all the 360 creatures that live on land. It has the body of a deer, the tail of an ox, and the hooves of a horse. Its short horn, which grows out of its forehead, is made of flesh. Its coat on its back is of 5 mixed colors, while its belly is brown or yellow. It is so gentle that when it walks, it is careful not to tread on the tiniest living creature, and will not even eat live grass, but only what is dead. Its appearance foretells the birth of an upright ruler. To wound the Chinese unicorn or to come across its dead body is unlucky. The span of the animal's natural life is 1,000 years. When Confucius's mother bore him in her womb, the spirits of the 5 planets brought her an animal having the shape of a cow, scales of a dragon, and a horn on its forehead. This is the way Soothil reports the Annunciation. A variant of this, given by Wilhelm, tells that the animal appeared on its own and spat out a jade tablet on which these words were read: Son of mountain crystal, or of the essence of water, when the dynasty crumbles, thou shalt rule as a throneless king. 70 years later, some hunters killed Keelin, which still had a bit of ribbon around its horn that Confucius's mother had tied there. Confucius went to look at the unicorn and wept because he felt what the death of this innocent and mysterious animal foretold, and because in that ribbon lay his past. In the 13th century, a scouting expedition of the Emperor Genghis Khan, who had undertaken the invasion of India, met a creature in the desert like a deer, with a head like that of a horse, one horn on its forehead, and green hair on its body, which addressed them, saying, It is time for your master to return to his own land. One of Genghis's Chinese ministers, upon consultation, explained to him that the animal was a Chio Tuan, a variety of the Keelin. For 4 years, the great army had been warring in western regions, he said. Heaven, which has a horror of bloodshed, gives warning through the Chio Tuan. Spare the empire for heaven's sake. Moderation will give boundless pleasure. The emperor desisted in his war plans. 22 centuries before the Christian era, one of the judges of the Emperor Shun was in possession of a one-horned goat, which refused to attack the wrongly accused, but would butt the guilty. Margulies' anthology Raison de la littérature chinoise includes this mysterious, soft-spoken allegory, the work of a 9th century writer of prose. It is universally held that the unicorn is also a supernatural being and of auspicious omen. So say the odes, the annals, the biographies of worthies, and of other texts whose authority is unimpeachable. Even village women and children know that the unicorn is a lucky sign. But this animal does not figure among the barnyard animals. It is not always easy to come across. It does not lend itself to zoological classification, nor is it like the horse or bull, the wolf or deer. In such circumstances, we may be face to face with a unicorn and not know for sure that we are. We know that a certain animal with a mane is a horse and that a certain animal with horns is a bull. We do not know what the unicorn looks like. Oh, wow. How fun. Such an interesting idea, a unicorn, you know, wild. Let's keep going here. Now we have the Uroboros. Uroboros, right? A goat unicorn is kind of cool, especially one that only butts the unworthy and the liars. Let's read this. The Uroboros. To us, the ocean is a sea or a system of seas. To the Greeks, it was a simple circular river that ringed the land masses. All streams flowed from it, and it had neither outlets nor sources. It was also a god or a titan, perhaps the most ancient of all titans, since sleep in Book 14 of the Iliad calls it the source from whom the gods are sprung. In Hesiod's Theogony, it is the father of all the world's rivers, 3,000 in number, the leading of which are the Alpheus and the Nile. An old man with a flowing beard was the usual personification of the river ocean. After centuries, men found a better symbol. Heraclitus had said that in the circumference, the beginning and the end are a single point. A 3rd century Greek amulet preserved in the British Museum gives us the image which best illustrates this endlessness. The serpent that bites its own tail, or as the Argentine poet Martinez Estrada so beautifully put it, that begins at the end of its tail. A story runs that Mary, Queen of Scots, had engraved on a gold ring the inscription, In my end is my beginning. meaning perhaps that real life begins after death. Ouroboros, Greek for the one that devours its tail, is the learned name of this creature, which became the symbol adopted by alchemists in the Middle Ages. The curious may read further in Jung's study, Psychology und Alchemy. A world circling serpent is also found in Norse cosmology. It is called the Miogar Osormor. Literally, the middle yard's worm, middle yard standing for the earth. In the younger Edda, Snorri Sturluson recorded that Loki fathered a wolf and a serpent. An oracle warned the gods that these creatures would be the earth's downfall. The wolf, Fenrir, was kept on a cord woven of 6 imaginary things: the noise of a cat's footfall, the beards of women, the roots of stones, the sinews of bears, the breath of fish, and the spittle of birds. The serpent, Jormungand, was thrown into the sea surrounding the land, and there it has grown so large that now it too surrounds the earth and bites its own tail. In Jotunheim, the land of giants, Utgard Loki challenges the god Thor to pick up a cat. Thor, using all his strength, barely manages to lift one of the cat's paws off the ground. The cat is really the serpent. Thor has been tricked by magic. At the twilight of the gods, the serpent will devour the earth, and the wolf the sun. Wow, wow, wow. So much wildness going on here, right? We started off with this idea of the world ocean, Oceanus, and the old man of the sea, right? There's several old men in this of the sea in Greek tradition, right? There's Pontius, there's Nereus, right? It's such a interesting thing, right? Yeah, Nereus is the classical old man of the sea, but there's also Pontus as well. But yeah, really, really interesting idea, you know? When I'm looking here, yeah, Proteus, Phorcys, Nereus, Pontius, right? There's several of these characters who come about. But also this idea, right, of the cosmic primordial waters, you see, is something that's really, really profound. And we see also in the deepest parts of the Orphic cosmogony, right? If you look into the Orphic fragments, there are several fragments that talk about how the egg comes up out of the waters. It is the waters are heated up by that force of cosmogonic eros, and then the egg rises out of the water. And then that cosmogonic eros force causes the egg to crack. And then Phanes is born. Then an erotic force causes Phanes to rip themselves apart, and creation descends and it's unfolding. And this is incredibly similar to the same story, or very similar story we see in the Vedas of the Hiranyagarbha, which is the golden egg. And very similar telling, right? We have this cosmic water, right? That is heated up. And then the egg appears to rise from the waters. Then that heat causes the egg to crack. Out of the cracking of the egg comes the what? The cosmic man, the Purusha, right? Who is then what? Sacrificed and ripped apart. It becomes the unfolding of all creation, right? Wild stuff here. Also, though, Borges connects this to an even more wild idea, that of the Ouroboros, right? The serpent that eats its own tail, that represents the cycle of eternal return. And this is something that the Greeks understood in the depths of their philosophy, right? That idea of eternal return that Nietzsche professes, comes to us directly from the pre-Socratics, like Heraclitus, right? And it's this idea that we go through this cycle of death and rebirth. The one becomes many to know itself, and then the many becomes one to know itself. And it's this back and forth. We see again very, very similar ideas within the Vedas, that life is this constant expansion and retraction, again and again and again and again, ever unfolding, right? And we see that represented in this idea of the Ouroboros. Who's in control of the Ouroboros in Greek mythology? Who represents that image? It is Circe, whose name is the circle, who represents the fullness of the sun and the completion of the cycle, right? Her island, Aiea, sits at the point where the tail bites, where the tail is bitten, right? It's right there at that point where the cycle begins and ends, right? When we look in the Odyssey and Odysseus makes it to Circe's island, it is a death and a new beginning, right? He enters into a liminal space where he is reborn, given sacred knowledge, and then set back into the world because he has entered in to that magical space outside of time, the island of Aiea, right? Wild, wild stuff. We see similar ideas in the Gaelic traditions and the Celtic traditions with Avalon, right? There are many of these magical islands that stand outside of time. Really, really powerful stuff, right? But we're dealing with this idea of the evolutionary cycle, right? All life is part of this eternal return. The one becomes many in order to know itself, and then the many becomes one in order to realize itself. And the cycle perpetuates again and again across infinity. The key for us is to wake up and recognize the game. Wild. Let's continue. Okay. Well, I think, guys, we should end it here for Borges. And we're now going to dive into our short story for the day. So today I wanted to read for you guys an interesting short. This one comes to us, excuse me, from a really interesting writer here. His name is Lagerkvist, and he is a Swedish writer from he was mainly popular in the 1910s, 1920s, really famous for really creating a lot of wild, surrealist, magical literature, right? One of the first big short story writers in Europe, and widely considered one of the greatest writers in Swedish. So we're going to have fun with this guy. We're going to read two of Parr's stories today. The first is called The Myth of Mankind, and then the second we're going to look at is called The Wave of Osiris. So let's dive in here. The Myth of Mankind. And we'll begin with this little introduction. This book of prose, the first pages of which are reprinted here, was written in 1922, but in accordance with the author's wishes, has remained unpublished. This extract was made public for the first time on December 10th, 1951, when it was read aloud by the author at the banquet given in the Stockholm City Hall in connection with the Nobel Festival. 1922. Once upon a time, there was a world. Two people came to it one morning, but not to stay there for long, only for a short visit. They had many other worlds as well. This one seemed to them more significant and poorer than the others. It was beautiful here, with the trees and the large drifting clouds. It was beautiful with the mountains, with the woods and glades, and with the wind which came invisible as it began to grow dark and touched everything so mysteriously. But it was nothing compared with the worlds they owned far away. That is why they wanted to stay only for a little while. But they did want to be there for a time, for they loved one another, and it was as if their love had nowhere been so wondrous as here. It seemed as though love was not something to be taken for granted in this world, something which completely filled everything, but that it was received as a gift of whom was expected the greatest things that could possibly happen here. It was, in fact, as if all that was clearest and brightest in their being became as secret here, as obscure, veiled, as if it were being kept hidden from them. They were strangers here, alone, left to the mercy of unknown powers, and the love that united them was a miracle, something that could be annihilated, that could only wither away and die. That is why they wanted to stay only for a little while. In this world, it was not always day. After the light, dusk fell over everything. It was obliterated, was no longer there. They lay in the darkness listening. They heard the wind soughing heavily in the trees. They crept together beneath them. Why do we live here? The man made a house for them, only of moss and stones, because they were soon to move again. The woman spread fragrant grass on the trodden down floor and waited for him when evening came. They loved one another more deeply than they ever seemed to have done before, and carried out the tasks of life here laid upon them. One day, as the man was roaming about in the woods, he got such a longing for her whom he held dear above all else that he knelt down and kissed the earth because she had rested on it. But the woman began to love the clouds and the great trees because the man returned home beneath them. And she loved the hour of twilight because it was then that he came. It was an unfamiliar world. It was not like those they owned far away. And the woman bore a son. The holly trees outside the house sang for him. He looked wonderingly about him and then fell asleep to the sound, unafraid. But the man came home each evening with bleeding animals. He was tired and lay down heavily. They talked to each other happily in the darkness. They would soon be making a move now. How strange it was, this world! After the summer came autumn and a cold winter. After the winter, the most delightful spring. In this way, they could see how time passed. Everything here was changeable. The woman again bore a son, and after a few years, yet another. The children grew up. They began to do things for themselves, running about and playing and finding something new every day. They just played with the whole strange world, with everything in it. What was meant in all seriousness, they turned into something meant only for themselves. The man's hands grew rough from working with the soil and from his labors in the woods. The woman's features began to harden too, and she walked more slowly. But her voice was gentle in singing as before. One evening, when she had settled down in the twilight, tired after a long day, with the children gathered around her, she said to them, "Now we shall soon be leaving here. Now we shall soon be going away to the other worlds where we have our home." The children looked at her in wonder. "What do you mean, mother? Are there other worlds than this?" Then she had the man looked at each other. A stab went through them, a smarting pain. She answered in a low her voice, "Of course there are other worlds than this." And she began to tell them about these worlds that were so different from the one they lived in now, where everything was so much bigger and much wonderful than here, so light and happy, where there was not this darkness, where no trees soughed as they did here, where no struggle weighed down as this one did. The children closed around her, listening, now and then looking wonderingly over at the father as if to ask whether it was true. He nodded his head, lost in thought. The smallest sat right against the mother's feet. He was pale. His eyes gleamed with a strange light. But the eldest son, who was 12 years old, sat farther away, looking down at the ground. At last he got up and went out into the darkness. The mother went on. They listened and listened. It was as if she were looking away into the distance. Her gaze was far off. Sometimes she fell silent, just as if she could not see, could not remember anything more, as if she had forgotten. Then she spoke again, in a voice even more remote than before. The fire flickered on the sooty hearth, lighting up their faces, casting its glow around the heated room. The father held his hand before his face. The children listened with shining eyes. They sat like this, motionless, until it was almost midnight. Then the door opened, letting in the cold air from outside, and the eldest son came in. He looked around him. In his hand he had a large black bird with a gray belly. Blood ran from its breast. It was the first he had brought down himself. He threw it down on the ground beside the fire. The warm blood steamed. Without a word, he went farthest into the semi-darkness and lay down to sleep. There was not a sound. The mother stopped speaking. They looked wonderingly at the bleeding bird, which was staining the ground red at its breast. They got up in silence and all went to rest. After that evening, they didn't speak together very much for a time, each going his own way. It was summer. The bumblebees hummed. The grass round about was lush. The glades were green after the spring rain that had fallen. The air was so clear. One day, the smallest boy went up to the mother as she sat outside the house at noonday. He was pale and quiet and asked her to tell him about another world. The mother looked up in surprise. I can't talk to you about this now, dear. The sun is high in the heavens. Why aren't you playing with all that is yours? He left her without a word and cried, unknown to anyone. He never asked again. He just grew paler and paler. His eyes burned with a strange luster. One morning he had to lie where he was, couldn't raise himself up. He lay motionless day after day, hardly speaking, just looking into the far distance with his dilated eyes. They asked him if he was in pain. They said that he would soon be able to go out into the sun again. There were other flowers now, bigger than before. He didn't answer, seemed not to see them. The mother watched over him and cried. She asked if he would like her to tell him all the wonderful things she knew, but he smiled and just lay still as before. And one evening he closed his eyes and was dead. They all gathered around him. The mother laid his small hands across his breast. Later, when twilight came, they sat together in the darkened room, speaking about him in whispers. Now he had left this world. Now he was no longer here. Now he had gone to another world, better and happier than this one. But they said it despondently, sighing heavily. Shyly they went to rest on the far side from the dead boy. He lay lonely and cold. In the morning they buried him in the earth. He was to lie there. The country smelled sweet. The sun shone everywhere, soft and warm. The mother said, "He is not here." By the grave was a rose tree that was now in bloom. And the years passed. The mother often sat out by the grave of an evening, staring away over the mountains that shut everything in. The father stood there for a while, if he was passing, but the children kept away. For it was not like elsewhere on earth. The two sons were growing up now. Soon they were fully grown and tall, and had a new and more spirited air about them than before. But the man and the woman faded away. They became gray and bent. Something venerable and tranquil came over them. The father still tried to go hunting with his sons when the quarry was dangerous. It was no longer he, but they who fought with it. But the aged mother sat outside the house. She groped with her hand when they came toward her in the evening. Her eyes were so tired that she could only see at noonday when the sun was at its height. Otherwise, it was too dark. She would ask them, "Why is it so dark here?" One autumn, she withdrew into the house, lay listening to the wind as to memories from long, long ago. The man sat and held her in his. They talked between themselves. It was as though they were again alone here. She wasted away, but her face seemed to become transfigured by light. And one evening she said to them all in her quavering voice, "Now I want to leave this world where I have lived. Now I shall go home." And she went away. They buried her in the earth. She was to lie there. Winter and cold came again. The old man stayed by the hearth, was too feeble to go out. The sons came home with animals, which they would cut up together. With shaking hand, he turned the spit, watching how the fire grew redder as the meat was roasted in it. But when the spring came, he went into the meadows, gazing at the trees and the grass that were growing green all around him. He stopped by the tree he recognized. He stopped everywhere, recognizing everything. He stopped by the flowers he had picked for her whom he loved the first morning they came here. He stopped by his hunting implements, which were blood-stained because one of the sons had used them. Then he went into the house and laid down and said to the son standing by his deathbed, "Now I must leave this world where I have lived my life. Now I must go away. Our home is not here." And he clasped them by the hand until he was dead. They buried him in the earth as he had bidden them. He wanted to lie there. Now the old ones were dead. The young ones felt such a strange relief, liberation, as if something had been severed. It was as if life had been freed from something that did not belong to it. They rose early on the morning of the following day. What a scent from the trees that had just come into leaf, and from the rain that had fallen in the night. Together they went out, side by side, both tall and newly young. It was joy for the earth to bear them. Now human life was beginning. They went out to take possession of the world. Wow. Isn't that a wild little story, right? Imagine that we came to this planet and lost our connection to elsewhere, right? Wow. What if heaven is a dream of a home once lost? Not a paradise, but a return. Beautiful. All right, let's continue. Next, we're going to dive into the wave of Osiris. And the great king over two kingdoms awakened as from a deep sleep in his grave chamber, which was filled with all the things of the earth, in order to step before the thrones of Osiris. Around him there were gathered all the riches of life, all that which is given to the chosen, wagons of cedar inlaid with gold and ivory, war chariots of copper ornamented with reliefs of victory, couches for resting borne by gilded cows with the sun disk between their horns, precious gems and bowls of onyx in jade, shimmering sealed alabaster jars with oils and ointments, slaves of both sexes carved in wood, and small as dolls performed their duties, served marvelous courses, raised the walls of his palace, carried home his quarry and his falcons after the hunt, hoisted his sails on the sacred river. He looked about and did not understand. At his feet knelt his body servant, with his hands pressed against his breast, ready to hear his commands. Ethiopian slaves butchered a sheep and prepared it at the hearth, harvested the fields and drove the oxen at the water wheel. Dancing girls in transparent garments danced for him with their arms lifted above their heads to the music of flutes and harps. What was this? He could not remember. In a common bowl of clay, unlike anything else there, lay some blackened grains of corn. Servants were occupied in baking bread, wool carding, spinning and weaving. On a basin of gold lay pearls and sparkling precious stones. He understood nothing, did not recognize anything. In the center, his own statue was throned. He did not know who it was. On the pale chalk stone walls of the grave chamber, his whole life was pictured. All his power and glory, his victories over his enemies, his armies and chiefs, and he himself triumphant on his chariot, riding over the trampled corpses of his foes, while the falcon of Horus lifted the looped cross, the sacred mark of life, before his eyes. What did this mean? He could not explain. The life of the earth lived in all its splendor around him. All that which he had wanted to carry along, all that which he had thought important to have here, all was as he had decided, but he did not know what the meaning of it was. He stood there and looked about, as in an unknown world. His glance was as if touched by a hand which had taken away the interpretation of the pictures. His soul was a subterranean well without surface. Then his lifeless glance happened to fall on a small gilded image of a woman who radiated light before him through the dimness. She did not awaken any memories in him, not even one. She was as unknown to him as anything there. But within him, something moved when he looked at her, as if something were still alive. He went nearer and gazed at the image. She sat with her hands resting on her small knees, and her large, earthy eyes met his questioning glance. No, he did not know her, but there rose within him something like a mighty wave which filled his breast. He did not know what it was, but it was something great and strange. It gripped him with a secret power. It was something wonderful and incomprehensible, something which lived. The gold flakes came off when he touched her, filled his hands with sparkling dust. Long he stood there in the twilight by her image. Then he lifted his empty eyes and, with his hand on his breast, he entered before the throne of Osiris. He recognized the beautiful, he recognized Aphrodite inherent in the Eidolon, and then ascended the throne. Wild. Wild, 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 wild stuff. Powerful. All right. Well, I hope that resonated with you guys. I hope you enjoyed those incredible stories by Par Lagerkvist, one of Sweden's brightest Most beautiful writers, incredible work. All right. And with that, guys, we're now going to dive in to our chanting for the morning. So those of you who have been following along know that I love to read the Ephesian letters, the Ephesia Grammata. This is a magical spell that was written upon the temple of Artemis at Ephesus and is even said to be far older than that. One of the oldest incantations in the entire Greek tradition. So old, in fact, it predates the Greek language and is said to be Pelasgian in origin. And the meaning of the words themselves have been lost, even though the recitation has remained. We do know two of the words, though, from the Greek tradition that we can be certain of. Damnamenius, the second to last word, is one of the Idaean dactyli, the autochthonous children born from the earth by the great mother goddess Rhea, who had the dactyli come and protect the infant child Zeus, right? And Damnamenius is one of them, a great magician and a smith. And then we have Asia, one of the great nymphi, the goddess of Turkey and the goddess of glory. So really powerful stuff here. And this spell was chanted at weddings. People used to walk around each other and chant this spell to secure a wedding. They used to inscribe it on gold plates or on lead plates and wear it as amulets, or they would even tattoo this on their skin to protect them. But let's chant this 108 times. And I encourage you all to follow along, to sit Isis style. That is, with your back straight in your chair and your feet firmly planted on the ground and your head as straight as you can possibly get it. But most important is always to sit comfortably, of course. All right. So please follow along and chant if you'd like. And the words, of course, are ASCII, Kataski, Lix, Tetrax, Damnamenius, Asia. All right, let's go. ASCII, Kataski, Lix, Tetrax, Damnamenius, Asia. 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 ASCII, Kataski, Lix, Tetrax, Damnamenius, Azio. Oski, Katoski, Lix, Tetrax, Domnomenius, 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 Azio. Oski, Katoski, Lix, Tetrax, damnamenius, ezio. 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 Oski, katoski, lix, tetrax, damnamenius, Azio. Oski, Katoski, Lix, Tetrax, Domnomenius, 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 Azio. Oski, excuse me. Oski, Oski, Katoski, Lix, Tetrax, Domnomenius, Azio. 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 Oski, Katoski, Lix, Tetrax, Damnamenius Hasia. 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 All right, beautiful people. I hope that resonated with you. I hope you're as blissed out as I am. Sorry about the little bit of a frog in my throat there. But we keep on, we keep on. Life is beautiful. Hail the great mother. All right. And now we're going to take a short 10-minute break. And when I return, we're going to begin our divination proper. In the meantime, please enjoy the wonderful, beautiful art and harpsichord music. I'll be right back. Thank you guys for joining me. Peace and love. And praise the Great Mother. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Drawing Down the Dragon. I'm Snappy, and thank you for joining me for our morning adoration to the Muses. And now that we return, we are going to begin our divination proper. But before I do, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does make a big difference. It boosts everything in the algorithm, and I would truly, truly love and appreciate it. And if anyone is interested in me pulling them a few cards this morning, you can send me a super chat, a super thanks, or sign up for a YouTube membership. All right. And today we're going to begin with our Ganapati Oracle. And let us invoke Ganapati Ganesh, the divine child, the Lord of beginnings, the guardian of the threshold, and the master of the spirits, the Ganas. And we ask Lord Ganapati to send us an empowering message through the cards and to help ensure that our words are heard by those who need to hear them. So, Lord Ganapati, what is today's enlightening and empowering message? All right, let's take a look. Inspire. And we have energetic movements, the same card as we had yesterday morning. How beautiful, right? Energetic movement. Now is the time to dance and to play. Perfect energy for the moon in Leo as well, right? And this, with that power of the five, is the force of Aphrodite and Aries combined. The energy that calls us to exceed our limits, to cross the threshold and wield the elemental powers, to draw down the moon. Now is the time to be in that active engagement, to play, to have fun, and to go for it. Powerful, powerful energy, right? Love it. Embrace your desires, embrace joy, and play. All right. Up next, we're going to go to the Fairy Guardian Oracle. The Fairy Guardian Oracle. And let us invoke the spirits, the fairies, the daimones, the manes, the lares, the penates, the genii, the seleni, the satyrs, the dryads, the naiads, the oreads, the nymphes, the nereids, the curites, the coriobantes, the elves, the gnomes, all the spirits of mind, the spirits of place, the spirits of the elements, of the ancestors, of the crossroads, of the dead. We invite them all in and ask them to watch over our readings, to guide my hands and inspire. What is today's empowering and enlightening message, fairies? Let's take a look. And our center image is stargazing. When you gaze at the stars, you give yourself fairy focus. Your intuition will flow more freely and reveal what you need to know about your situation. Wow. Now's the time to go out under the stars and to engage with that profound magic of the ancestors, to cry out and to make the wish. The stargazing immediately connects us to the star card in the tarot, Aquarius, which is all about having that grandiosity of vision, seeing and envisioning and empowering yourself into the future and calling it into being, recognizing that the stars are our ancestors, that the elements that make us up were born in their fires, and that even though they are billions of years away, and even though many of them are long dead, their light still travels across the abyss and hits us, impacts us, reflects upon us. There is an intimacy of connection here, no matter the deep distances between us. And it is so profound. Connect to the ancestors and cry out in love, and you will be gifted what you desire. Powerful. All right. Thank you so much, fairies. What a beautiful message. And we're now going to hop over to the Angel Guardian Oracle. And let us invoke the angels, the angeloi, the attendant spirits of Hermes, and ask them to guide us on our journey, to help us on our way, and to help us to realize the beauty of our dreams. What is the message, angeloi? Oh, wow, we got a card shooting out. And it is Guardian Angel. Guardian Angel. How powerful is that? Well, the Guardian Angel is the highest muse. It is that reflection of the self. That which is above is the same as that which is below. Recognize that we are all Dionysus, that we all are made of that star dust. We were born of the vapor and of the dust of Dionysus when he was destroyed as Zagreus, reformed into the cosmic man by the hand of Prometheus. And as such, we have that potential to rise and move beyond the limits. We can return to Olympus. We can move beyond the earth. We can abandon our titanic nature and become divine. This is the cycle that we're meant to follow, right? This is the life we live. All of us are Dionysus. And it's not so much, people get confused about this idea of possession and enthusiasm. It is not an external thing, right? Dionysus is in every single cell of our being. The muse is present. It is not an entity taking over, it is a becoming. It is an awakening of the self, of the truest self within. It's nothing external to you nor different from you. It is just you knowing the true self. Wow. Find that true self. Connect to your guardian angel. Connect to the highest muse. Go through that process of refinement and become beautiful. All right. Up next, we're going to go to the witch's guardian oracle. The witch's oracle. And let us invoke the witches, Hecate, Circe, Calypso, Medea. And we ask them to shine their light upon us, to guide us on our journey, and to help us to realize our true will. What is the message? Daughters of the sun, witches. Let's see. We have blissful, blissful. Wow, blissful. This is a really interesting energy. Do you not recognize the profundity of the moment that we're in? All that matters is the now. And in this moment is pure bliss, pure love, pure Aphrodite, right? This is what Dionysus does. He chases after her in wild abandon. He sees her present in all things, and he is at peace, at bliss. He goes through the cycles in madness, in love, and in frivolity. All experience is profound, and all experiences is of her, right? And all experience leads to that magic of ecstasy, ekstasmos, leaving the self and doing what? Ascending the mountain. Where do the maenads go when they achieve the ecstasy? They go to the mountain, they reach to the stars, they become whole again. Wow. Love it. All right, and we continue. For our last oracle deck, we're going to go to the Egyptian gods oracle. And let us invoke the gods of Egypt, the Ogdoad, the Neteru, the spirits of the Nile, and ask them to guide us on our journey, help us on our way, and to help ensure that our words are heard by those who need to hear them. So Neteru, what is today's enlightening and empowering message? Inspire. And we have Mehen, protection, 35. What beautiful energy, Mehen, right? This connects us to the world snake. And we were just talking about the world snake today in our earlier in our show when we were reading the book of Imaginary Beings by Jorge Borges, right? And Mehen, right, is the one who protects Osiris as he rides upon the bark, right? As he crosses the universal Nile. Profound magic here, right? Recognize that serpent is our protector, and it is also that universal unfolding cycle. And who are we? We are all Ra, sitting upon the boat, going through the changing of the cycles. We are all what? Children of the sun, aspects of the sun, dying and rising. Beautiful. Love it. Hail Mehen. Embrace that magic of protection. Recognize that all life is beautiful, all experience is profound, and death is but an illusion. Beautiful. All right. And with that, we're now going to dive in to our tarot proper. But before I do, once again, please give me a like, and a subscribe. It really does make a big difference. It boosts everything in the algorithm, and I would truly, truly love and appreciate it. And if anyone is interested in me pulling them a few cards, you can send me a super chat, a super thanks, or sign up for a YouTube membership. And we're going to begin today by doing a community read, a 9-card Saturn square read, and we'll see if we want to take it up levels of the tower. We're going to begin here with the Tarot as Color by Ethel Kikuit. And let us invoke Apollo and the Muses and ask them to shine their light upon us, to guide us throughout our day, and to help us to realize the beauty of our dreams. So, Apollo and the Muses, what is the empowering and enlightening message from Ethel Kikuit in the Tarot as Color? Let's take a look. Muses inspire. Okay. So our center card and defining image is Death, the child of the great transformers, the lord of the gates of death. Death, heavy, heavy energy, right? Death is the 13 that takes us to the 4, the crossroads, the power of Hecate and Hermes combined. When the death is here, this is an ending, an inevitability, something we must pass through, a radical change, and all we can do is embrace it. That death is also the spark of new life, and this is something we can't avoid. This energy is permanent and empowered. Where does it take us? Let's see. Wow, we have the Prince of Wands. This is actually really good. You know, the Prince of Wands is the heir of fire, the reckless youth. This represents people who are caught up in their imaginations and in their passions, but are disconnected from self and reality, disconnected from community. Often, the Prince of Wands are truly creative people, but people who are in that activist energy. They really want the world to understand and to see things from their perspective. They have all this passion and drive for change and transformation, but because they are disconnected from the earth and the water, they struggle in sharing their ideas with others. They struggle in building and creating. What this leads to is all of this incredible passion and understanding and frustration. This youth often acts impulsively, recklessly. They do anything to get seen. They do anything to try and have their ideas heard. But what we're seeing here is that youth is being forced to face death. And ultimately, this is beautiful for the youth because that death represents a transformation. The prince energy will not stay in the face of death. To cross the threshold is to leave the prince energy behind. The question is can we mature into something greater or we will continue to stagnate? Let's continue. Where do we go from here? And we have the 7 of Cups, the Lord of illusionary success, right? The 7 of Cups is debauchery, right? We're no longer in the loving reciprocity and mutual consensual fulfillment of pleasure. We have now fallen into selfish, deluded energy. The 7 of Cups is often the energy of distraction and wasting time, engaging in limited forms of pleasure rather than dealing with our problems, rather than paying attention to the people around us. But this energy is deeply filthy, right? It hurts the self and it hurts the others. If we are in this wasteful energy, then other people are paying for it as well as your physical self. And ultimately, this energy wastes your life. It wastes time and it can become truly problematic. This can move from something that's a simple distraction, like wasting time on your phone, and can become something that's life destroying, like drug abuse, right? So, what we're seeing here is that prince needs to reconcile with these waters. And this is something that the prince is going to struggle with because, as we said, the prince is devoid in this energy of the water. They're devoid of the earth. They have trouble seeing themselves reflected in the other. They have trouble relating to other people. And they need to recognize the weight of their actions on others, the weight of that selfishness. And when they can do that, they will pass through the gate of death. See, yeah, look at that. The Hierophant, the Magus of the Eternal, the 5. Wow, guys. Through that death, through the 4 into the 5, right? The 13 reduces to 4 and takes us into the 5. We are crossing the threshold and drawing down the moon. We're becoming the Hierophant. What is the Hierophant? The Hierophant is the grand educator and temple builder, the one who unites people in community and culture and builds that collective space, right? This is the energy of drawing down that moon and planting the seed in the earth. Venus in Taurus, building something for true communal engagement and understanding. The Hierophant is the wise woman and the wise man who wishes to share their ideas. So this is us learning to cross that threshold and empower ourselves in our wisdom, to have the audacity to build and create for that which is greater than ourselves, right? In order for us to become this Hierophant, we cannot be in this limited selfish energy. We cannot be that closed-minded prince who's caught up in their own perspective. We cannot be in the self-serving energy of debauchery and wastefulness, right? Where do we go from here? And look at that. We have the Queen of Swords, the Queen of the Throne of Air. Now, this is really, really beautiful, connected to the prince, connected to the death. We are being called to embody the Queen of Swords energy, to make a profound shift, to move from the fire into the water and the air, to reorient ourselves, to put the water first, right? The Queen energies are all about nurturing and connection, right? The Queen energies want to come into collaboration with others. And the Queen of Swords wants to come into collaboration for the purpose of communication and the sharing of knowledge, for collaboration and discussion, for democracy. So this is us shifting into this energy of teaching. For the Queen of Swords is in many ways the ultimate teacher in the deck of all of the character court cards, right? The one who desires to share knowledge and to ensure that everyone gets to speak and is heard and understood. Real profound magic here. So we're coming out of that selfish energy, coming into this nurturing, sharing, educating energy. Beautiful. And look what that does. When we can empower ourselves as the Hierophant and build in the earth, when we can share our ideas with others and come into community and collaboration, then we manifest the Nine of Discs, right? The Nine of Discs, this is the earth at its most abundant, that penultimate moment before the completion of the cycle, when everything is generating in its most powerful way, right? When you can be that grandiose teacher and you can really engage the earth, then the rewards will come in such an abundant way. And we can share them, really manifest that temple, build this communal structure. There's so much power and potential here, right? The other aspect of the Nine of Discs is it represents the true power and wealth of the earth, and it's most abundant. And that energy is so intense and heavy. You got to share it when you got to use it, but you can't hold on to it, right? It's impossible to hold on to. Wow. Let's continue here. And we got now the Ten of Swords, the Lord of Ruin, the completing of the cycle in the air. Look at that, guys. Wow. When we can face death, we close out the cycle of fear. When we can become the teacher, we close out the cycle of fear. This is all about us embodying the role we are meant to embody, letting go of that which no longer serves, becoming our best self, and breaking free of fear. The Ten of Swords were closing out that energy of overthinking. No longer are we caught up in the Nine of Swords, cruelty, victimization, where we believe the world is out to get us, the universe is out to get us. When we are in that wounded victim mentality, right? We're breaking out of that. The issue with the air, right? When we're caught up in our mind and our imagination, we make everything worse. We imagine the worst of people. We imagine the worst of things. We create a situation that becomes self-fulfilling due to all that overthinking. And what are we doing here? We're letting that go. We're closing the cycle out and returning to the one. We're going back to a place of communication and understanding, no longer isolated in ourselves, but willing to share our ideas as that beautiful Queen of Swords. Yeah, and look at that, guys. Wow, the King of Cups. There's a potential for a profound romantic connection here, a profound connection here, right? The Queen of Swords is the water of air, And the King of Cups is the fire of water. They're uniting in that true collaborative energy. This king is bringing the passion, that queen is bringing the wisdom, and together they can come into determined action, right? The fire and the air create that firestorm, a potentiality, right? And there's all this abundance in the earth. So there's a real opportunity to collaborate and grow, right? We're moving out of that limited prince energy, becoming our best self, and collaborating with someone who matches us with maturity and passion. Wow. The Five of Swords defeat. The Lord of Defeat. Yeah. Connected to the 10. The big issue for us right now is all about the pursuit of wisdom, becoming the Queen of Swords, moving out of that fearful energy. You know, the big difference between the prince and the queen is where the air is situated. The air is first with the Prince of Fire, right? The air is first. They caught up in their mind first. And that allows them to be isolated, to be fearful, to be overthinking. Whereas the Queen of Swords, the air comes second. Her first thought is of the water, is of the people around her. Do people understand? Are people okay? Are we collaborating? Are we connecting? Are we working together? Then we can go into the mind. Then we can go into the heights of the air. Together, we face it together, not alone. And this is such a profound thing, right? That's how we're going to defeat the energy of the five. When that queen learns to collaborate with that king who matches her, who is mature and profound like her, together they can defeat that energy of defeat, right? The energy of the Five of Swords defeat is one of the most intense cards in the entire Minor Arcana, right? That shift from the Five of Swords to the Six is so beyond difficult, so beyond difficult. It takes such incredible practice. And often the lesson in the tarot is you cannot do this on your own. You cannot do this simply in the air. It doesn't work that way. Real wisdom is a collaborative effort that's built over time. And that's what we're seeing. The wisdom that we seek, we gain, but we gain it when we collaborate with that king. When the queen learns to listen and work, share, and come to greater understanding, then we complete the cycle and we gain the wisdom we seek. We break free of the patterns of fear that kept us in that prince energy. Wow, guys, this is profound. This is really profound. Right. I think we need to go to the next level, though. We need to see where this is building. So, what we see here on our first level is coming out of that selfish immaturity, right? We have all of this passion, all of these ideas, all of this desire to make a change, but yet we are caught up in our own self fulfillment. The only way that we can grow and really create is by passing through the gates of death, taking responsible action, disciplining ourselves, and no longer being in this wasteful energy that hurts ourselves and others, taking responsibility and rejecting that disillusioned child, right? The one who's caught up in fear and overthinking, who cannot build in the earth and collaborate with others. Instead, we are transitioning into the queen, someone who is truly connected to the people around them and takes the time to understand and do the work, who seeks that greater collaboration with loving communication and honesty. And what does she do? She collaborates with the King of Cups. And when they can collaborate together, that Hierophant energy comes in. The wisdom is gained. We were able to build in the earth together, right? We come into this incredible wealth and abundance of the earth. We break free of the fear, right? Wow. So all of this is about these two energies collaborating and working together to produce that Hierophantic power. So let's see where this is going. All right. Our center card now is the Queen of Wands. So what I'm seeing in the future is as this energy unfolds, we are being called to first be the Queen of Wands in order to collaborate and to work with this king, in order to empower ourselves in the Hierophantic energy and to teach and to share our ideas. But eventually we have to transition into the Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands is the artist. This is the water of fire. Those people who put their beauty into the world, who share their uniqueness. And seek to make changes through that sharing of passionate ideas and inspiration, right? So we're all about now embracing that fire and sharing that fire in community. Where does this go? Yeah, we've got the tower, right? So there is some painfulness here, right? That seven of discs, or sorry, that seven of cups, debauchery that we saw, that really heavy energy, right? That selfish, distracting energy, wasting our time, wasting the time of others. That energy is going to lead to a collapse. But this is necessary, right? It's necessary. Anytime you see the tower, I want you to recognize it in its dualistic image. On one hand, the tower is painful because it does mean radical change and upset. Our foundation is challenged. We are facing a threat, external, that will cause harm. All of that is true. But this energy does what? It upsets the old growth. It burns down what no longer serves. It allows for the fresh shoots of spring to come in, for new life and new generation, new ideas, right? We have to break free from that which no longer serves. We have to break free of the selfish energy, and that tower may be painful, but it's also forcing us to take responsibility and to acknowledge our limited action. When you're in that selfish mode, the tower falls. When you reject selfishness, you can rebuild. Yeah, you can rebuild indeed, guys. Look at this. Holy shit. Out of the collapse comes the four. And the four of discs is, man, you do not get more intense than this, right? The four of discs is the most complicated card in all of the minor arcana. And it is absolutely what the prince needs. In order for that prince to grow up and become a king, they need to build the foundation and define themselves. What is the four of discs, the power foundation, really about? This is about creating that fundamental self image that stays with us through the changing of the cycles, right? Through the changing of the cycles. So this represents how we see ourselves, our career, our family, our loved ones, our children, our home, all of those energies that inform how you view yourself, those core aspects. What are we doing? Right? We're re-envisioning and reimagining ourselves. We are passing through the gates of death. We're breaking free from that prince energy of the past. We're passing through the collapse and we're rebuilding anew. This time with loving artistic maturity as that profound queen. Wow. And look at that. Amazing. We got another four. The four of truce, repose, the four of swords. One of the most powerful cards, right? Because this represents the beginning of true wisdom. No longer are we caught up in our own limited perspective, but we are now truly collaborating and incorporating the worldviews of others to create a holistic understanding. That image of the lotus is only visible when all 4 points come together, when all four perspectives are shared. Only then can we witness the flower blossoming in front of us. And that's what we're seeing here, right? We're coming out of that selfish debauchery. We're building our foundation and we're coming into loving communication and understanding, right? We're learning to see beyond that selfishness that was represented of the prince. And we're coming into this collaborative energy that is the purview of the Queen of Swords. Yeah. And look at this, guys. This is incredible. When we can build that new foundation out of this collapse, when we can learn to create that holistic perspective with the people we trust, then we can come into true satisfaction and fulfillment. The Ten of Cups is the completion of the cycle in the water, real, true love, friendships, community, partnerships, collaborators, everything you could want out of your emotions and more. And this energy is also that magic of charity. We've come to this place now where we have achieved so much that we want to share our love and our beauty with the people around us and uplift and help them, where we have an obligation to do so. Wow. And look at that. How do we do all this? How do we do all this? We do it with that power of Leo. Perfect energy for the moon in Leo. Lady Babylon, strength, lust, the breaker of chains, the energy that calls us to endure, to persist, to pursue our will with the full intensity of our being until we succeed, no matter the cost or the difficulty. We draw down that moon. We empower ourselves in the earth, right? That's what the queen is doing. She's overcoming the collapse and building anew and manifesting the love that she desires. Wow. Yeah. The Prince of Swords, right? So there's another aspect here, right? In some ways, we show up in that Prince of Swords energy. In some way, we show up in that Prince of Wands energy, right? The Prince of Swords, unlike the Prince of Wands, where the Prince of Wands thinks they know what's best for everyone, and they want everyone to agree with them. And they're desperate to make that radical change, very politically driven, very culturally driven. The Prince of Swords is not external at all. The Prince of Swords is entirely internal. They reject the world. They reject other people. They even reject themselves. Because what happens with the prince? They're so caught up in the air, so caught up in their imagination that they're completely disconnected from reality and self. They look at themselves and it doesn't correspond to their imagination. And so they lash out in frustration. They look at reality and it doesn't correspond to their imagination. And so they lash out in frustration, right? But your imagination isn't real. It is just an aspect. And all this overthinking has turned us into a victim, disconnected us from self and reality. And the only way forward is to come down from that air and to pass through the gate of death, to transition into that queen. And for the king, for the prince here, the way to do that, the collapse has to happen. The truth must be gained. The foundation must be built, right? It's heavy energy, but this is what the muse is telling us. We're going through this painful moment because we got to be that mature person who considers the people around us first. What does the queen do? She connects to people in loving, nurturing collaboration first. The passionate beauty, the art, everything else is secondary. It's there. You get to be that creative. You get to share your beauty with the world. But first comes the loving, nurturing, not that selfish, limited, imaginal viewpoint, right? We got to get out of this isolated energy and come into community. Let that tower fall. Embrace perspective. Yeah, look at that. The Eight of Wands. How do we do this? How do we do this? We are not alone. The spirits are here with us. The Eight of Wands represents the angeloi, the attendant spirits of Hermes. And when this card is here, there's a message for us. Hermes comes to show us a way out. The eights always represent being caught up in sort of a stagnating pattern, doing the same thing and expecting different results. But the Eight of Wands breaks that pattern. It says, I see you stuck and stagnant, and now I'm pointing you in a new direction. There's a new opportunity, but you got to be willing and able to follow. You have to trust your heart. And when you see the opportunity, you seize it and you take the leap after it. You go for it with that fullness of your being. You have the strength to pursue it. It's not going to be easy, but where does it lead? It leads you from that prince to the queen, right? From the selfish, distracted, fearful person into that beautiful, confident, mature woman who shares her ideas in loving harmony with the people around her. Confident and beautiful, right? Yeah. And the big issue, right? Just as the Five of Swords was a big issue, that energy of defeat, trying to come into understanding, the other massive issue for the prince is the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords, right? Three of Swords is selfish communication, right? We're in the sorrow energy because I am trying to assert my will. I'm trying to force my perspective and I'm unwilling to listen to others. Wow, we are seeing this energy fall apart. We have the strength to move beyond it and to do what? To gain the truth. We got to let that shit go. We don't know what's best. We got to come into collaboration. The best way forward is when you listen and you incorporate. You don't have to abandon your perspective entirely, but if you're in that selfish mode, no one is ever going to listen to you. Just how it is. right? If you're trying to force, the universe will not conform. We got to collaborate. We got to connect. We got to inspire. And that's what we're seeing the big shift here. That prince is learning to communicate, learning to trust their heart, to have the strength to persist and endure. And when they can overcome that energy of death. They can break free of this prince energy, build their foundation, and come into loving fulfillment, right? Wow, 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 wow. What a wild little read, guys. Incredible. Amazing. So the key to this is all about that maturity of action, building the foundation, becoming the teacher and the collaborator, learning to work with the people around us and to move out of this limited selfish mode, right? We have to have the strength to pursue our will, and we have to move beyond the self and come into real collaboration to get it done. But look at this. We're becoming that artist. We're building our foundation. We're coming into our strength. And we're no longer caught up in that selfish, fearful, limited energy anymore. Beautiful. Wow, wow, wow. That's the message, guys. What a powerful read. All right. I hope that resonated with you. It certainly resonated with me. And thank you so much to the Thoth Tarot by Lady Frida Harris and Aleister Crowley. And of course, to Tarot as Color and Ethel Cocoon as well. Beautiful. All right. And once again, if anyone would like me to pull them a few cards or give them a sortes, you can send me a super chat, a super thanks, or sign up for a YouTube membership. All right. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, guys, with that, we're coming up here to 2 hours. I'm feeling a little bit queasy. I need to eat something. So I think I'm going to call it a little bit shorter this morning. So we're just going to do one sortes today, and then we're going to end it. So let's see. We're going to check out Hoodoo Pilot by Kyle Veit. This is such a fun book. All right. So let's see. Muses. What is the message from Hoodoo Pilot by Kyle Veit? Inspire. We will progress into increasingly individualized, idiosyncratic, and intimate initiatory adventures in the arcane. We meet at the pub in hell, at inn, and inn at the end of the world. Look, guys, what are we seeing? We're coming into our individuality. We're learning to embrace experience. We're learning to explore the infinite reality as mature adults. Wow. Embrace life in the experience. Understand that death is simply a beginning of another kind, and engage in that profundity of experience. Wow. Beautiful. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate you. This has been a beautiful, lovely morning. And thank you so much for joining me. And I hope I will see you guys later on this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern today. I'm going to be joined by my two best friends, Leslie Celine and Dion. And we're going to be talking about the current state of ridiculousness that is our modern world, ranting about everything from politics to identity to race to nature. You name it, we'll be there. Now's the time for those real tough questions with people that we love and respect. And we are allowed to be in that fearful mode and just talk about it all. So come and join us. It's going to be cathartic, it's going to be empowering, and it will be a beautiful, loving conversation among friends. So I hope I see you guys then for Tea with Leslie at 3 p.m. today. And on Sunday, we'll also be back with more Occult Explorers. Dion has an amazing presentation for us where he's looking into a bunch of wild Mormon conspiracies having to do with the Davidic servant. And of course, our dear friend Josh Yao Setsul will also be joining us for that discussion on Sunday. So I hope I see you guys later on this afternoon and Sunday. And don't forget also to tune in to our regular adorations. I'm back to doing them twice a day. So I will be back later on tonight probably around 6 or 8 p.m. I'm not sure exactly. It depends how long the interview with Leslie goes, but it may be a little bit of a shorter one. We'll see. But thank you guys. Really appreciate you. This has been such a beautiful, lovely morning. So let's end today with our magical prayer. And we cry out in loving adoration to the great mother, the twins, and the muses, the one, duality, and generation. And we ask the muses to sing in us the songs of inspiration, to guide us in our daily wanderings, and to teach us to listen and perceive with reasoned clarity. Thank you all for joining me. Peace and love. Hail the great gods. Hail Hestia. Take care.